Paul, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, loud and clear. So we usually allow about 10 minutes for your presentation, so I'll hand it over to you.
All right, you can see the screen okay? We've got the right slide up to me?
I think so.
Okay. Well, as Madam Chair, Council, thank you for having us here this evening. I can't remember the last time that I presented to the Pictou County Council. Possibly, maybe this is the first for me, but anyway, it's been a little while, and I know we've gone through an election cycle, so the presentation you got to see, it's kind of a shortened version, but there's a couple of slides in there that are kind of set up for new councilors, but I'll go through them fairly quickly. And I think you only have three, if I'm correct, three new councilors, or
Yes.
two, I'm not quite sure, but so we'll get to them. I also have Laura McLean here this evening with me. She's our Assistant Director of Operations, and Laura has quite an extensive commercial background as well. So if you have any questions along the way, just ask them, and you can stop us if you wish. It's a little hard to see hands from where I'm at here. The council room is big. I'll also just add, I have a little bit of a unique perspective in PBSC in that I've kind of walked in your shoes, that I was an elected municipal official for 12 years with the town of Windsor, and I served as mayor for 8 years, so I kind of know some of the things that you come up against in your everyday duties as councilors, and so anyways, ask any questions you like as we go along, and we'll get started. So, the 2025 assessment roles. I'm going to go very high level here. So essentially, how the system works in Nova Scotia is that the government establishes the assessment, taxation, legislation, and regulations. Back in the early 2000s, the Property Valuation Services Act was created, and PBSC broke away from the provincial government, or the provincial government let us get away, I guess. I'm not sure how you want to take a look at it, but that was in the early 2000s, and they also set up the Assessment Act at that time. That's what we operate, the legislation that we operate under. We assess the value of the properties. That's essentially all we do. That's our mandate, is to assess the value of properties, some 650,000 properties across the province for all the municipalities. We share that information with the municipalities and with property owners. You may, you would have noticed that the assessment notices went out a week ago for sure. Then the municipalities, in the third step of the process, determine your budget requirements, which you will be doing in the next few months. You'll set the municipal tax rates, and you'll collect the property taxes and to pay for the municipal services. And the last piece of the puzzle, possibly the most important, of course, is that the property owners are the ones that are responsible for paying the taxes. So, a little bit about PBSC. We were created under the Property Valuation Service Corporation Act, as I had just mentioned, and we're responsible for assessing all the property in Nova Scotia. The Assessment Act is what we look to as far as our legislation, and we do it for all 49 municipalities around the province. We're municipally funded. We're a not-for-profit corporation. We're also governed by a board of directors. Typically, we have 12 board members, 3 of which would typically be elected municipal officials, councillors, and so on. 3 of which would typically be, or 3 or 4 would be staff from various municipalities. And also, we have independent private sector board members as well. So, like I say, typically we have about 12. Currently, our chair is Joe Feeney. He's the deputy mayor of the town of Mahone Bay, for those of you that know Joe. We have approximately 130 employees, and they work, live, and play in 62 communities around Nova Scotia. So we're all around the province. So what we do and what we don't do. What PBSC does under our legislation is deliver an assessment roll to all the municipalities. As I mentioned, there's some 650,000 assessment notices this year. that we deliver to property owners. And we administer the capped assessment program and the seasonal tourist business designation program on behalf of the Nova Scotia government. We didn't create the legislation, the province did, we administer it. So what we don't do, because this gets a little gray in the mind of some property owners and some councillors as well, we do not have the authority to set tax rates. We do not collect taxes. We do not create tax policy. And we don't provide tax relief. That's all under your purview based on the Municipal Government Act and what you can do as a council. We have no, we really have no leeway or influence or any ability to do anything related to the taxes. We just assess the property. Also, one thing we don't do is we don't determine land ownership. And we also don't determine the boundaries or the property lines for land. That's all done by the Registry of Deeds or the Land Registry. They tell us who the ownership is, and they tell us where the boundaries are. So if you have some issues with AANs and PIDs and those types of things, or who owns it, we typically go to the Land Registry to see what they have to say. So the Assessment Act requires that we assess property at market value. So market value under the Assessment Act is the value that would be paid if the property were sold on a date prescribed by the Director of Assessment in the open market by a willing seller and a willing buyer. So arm's length transactions, I guess, is the shorter way to say it, as far as open market arm's length transactions are what we consider, or what the Assessment Act considers to be market value, the market value, and sales that are completed at market value. So that date prescribed by the director, we actually look at market value that's 1 year prior to the assessment notices going out. So what we look at are all the sales in the province. In the case of the 2025 assessment roll, we look at all the sales, all the market value sales in the calendar year 2023, leading up to that market value date, which is January 1st, 2024. So January 1st, 2024, market value date, assessment notices go out January 2025 for the 2025 roll. Also, we show on the roll, the assessment reflects the state of the property as it existed on the first day of December, immediately preceding the filing of the roll. So what does that really mean? It means we also add the characteristics, or we also check the characteristics, or look at things such as permits to determine, what the characteristics are, leading right up as close to the roll as we can to make sure we get the data on the roll. So, for instance, if the market value date was January 1st, that's the market value date for the property. If someone builds a garage between January 1st and December the 1st, then we add that garage to the value as well for the assessment roll. So we do have two different sections there, two different important dates that we work with, and we work to have the assessment roll as complete as it can, December 3rd or December 1st, immediately prior to the roll going out.
Excuse me, Paul, if you wouldn't mind, we have a question. Sure, we have Councillor Peter Boyles here. He has a question for you. Go ahead, Peter.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to get you now to find out, like you said, that you have nothing to do with, who owns the land or anything. But if a person had a problem and they figure that that their land has been taken, or there's a problem with the line or something, how far back can you get assessments? Is there assessments available to people like way back, or is it just that year, or how does it work?
Well, we can essentially provide assessment information that we have on record back to the early 2000s when the computer system came in. However, prior to that, it gets a little harder because it's all in paper boxes. However, there may be I don't know, information at the land registry that may be applicable, I don't know, but I don't know if you're looking just for the assessment data. Ours was back or readily available back to the early 2000s.
Thank you.
Okay, before we continue, is there any other questions for Paul at this time? Okay, seeing none, go ahead, Paul.
All right. As far as the standards of our assessment services, we use advanced statistical analysis to conduct the examination of market trends and indicators for every assessment role. So every year we do it. We use mass appraisal methodology, and assessments are rigorously tested for accuracy and uniformity to ensure compliance with the Nova Scotia Assessment Act, and also compliance with industry standards, which are set by the International Association of Assessing Officers. And we work every year with our data scientists to ensure that we have a whole team of data scientists that we work with to ensure that these standards are met. So we have quality measures which include the level of assessment, fairness of assessments, equity between groupings. I'm not going to get into the weeds as far as that goes. It's statistical, a lot of it's statistical testing, a lot of analysis, a lot of review by assessors of sales and other market information. And I've taken a couple of statistical analysis courses, and 2 of them's enough. So the CAP assessment program is probably where we get most of our questions. PVSC administers the CAP program. The program places a cap on the amount that the taxable assessment for eligible residential property can increase every year, and it's based on Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, as at October 31st, and we receive that information from the provincial government in November. So essentially the key word in there is increase. The cap is set up to prevent significant increases in property values. So the twist to that is that there's nothing in the cap legislation that talks about decreases in property values. So the cap is there based on CPI. It increases by CPI every year, as set by Stats Canada, which is obtained by the province of Nova Scotia and provided to us in November this year. In that little orange circle that you can see on the screen, you'll see that the cap was set at 1.5%. So in previous years, just to compare, last year the cap was at 3.2% CPI, and the previous year, at the height of COVID, it was at 7.7% CPI. So just a little bit of context of what was going on over the past few years. So essentially, the assessment notices are going out. What a typical assessment notice would look like is shown on the screen here. There's 2 values on there, actually 3, but 2 of them are the same. But there's 2 values: the assessed market value, which is in the left-hand column, the 192.6. The capped assessment in the center column at 153. So under the cap legislation, the lower of the 2 is what the property owner is taxed on. So essentially, the 153 is lower than the 192. So the taxable assessed value would be $153,000 on that particular property, as per this example. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it over to Laura. She's going to talk to you a little bit about the numbers and a little bit about the appeal process.
Thank you very much, Paul. Good evening, Council. I just want to make sure you can hear me all right.
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you, Laura.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So you may find this slide quite interesting. It's the statistics for Pictou County in terms of the 2025 assessment roll. And the total value on that assessment roll is $3.6 billion. And of that, the majority does sit with the residential properties in the county. So that's coming in at $3.25 billion in total assessed value, and just over 23,000 residential accounts or properties. As you can tell with Paul's description of the cap, it does make quite a significant difference. So the residential assessed values with the cap value is $2.3 billion. As well, the number of accounts is over half of that total, the total of 23,000 there. 14,000 approximately residential accounts are subject to the cap. So a very significant number, which shows that there's a lot of property owners that are able to take advantage of that program. In terms of commercial property assessment, of course, there are less properties, only about 832 accounts within the county, and they total just over $370 million in a total assessed value. Of course, there is no cap for commercial properties, so that's just the straight assessed value for those, with no other information there. Next slide, please, Paul. So in terms of the 2025 assessment roll, here's some sort of fun facts that you might find interesting. Within the county, there were 379 permits this year. And as you know, permits are not only building permits, but also demolition, new construction, and anything in between. Within that, there were 606 property transactions or sales. You recall Paul spent some time discussing market values, and sales are very important to determining that. So 606 properties transacted in the calendar year 2023, so that's quite significant. In terms of assessment appeals, there were 288 appeals in 2024. So we'll see what the numbers are this year in terms of if that will maintain or not. Next slide, please, Paul. So speaking of appeals, and you may get this question from your constituents or others, but we just like to be very transparent and open about the appeal process. And there is, by the way, a ton of information on our public website, which I'll get to on the next slide. But just for everyone's benefit, I wanted to go over tonight the process. So each property owner does receive their notice of assessment, which indicates the assessed value for their property. And those were mailed out last week, so most folks should have those now. Should a property owner disagree with their assessed value, they are entitled to file an appeal. And this is very important. They must appeal by February 13th of 2025. The Assessment Act does not provide any leeway in terms of beyond that deadline. So that we like to really put that in like flashing neon letters. February 13th, 2025 is the deadline. And as mentioned, there are instructions on how to file the appeal, both online on our website, but also on the assessment notice printed right there. So it's quite handy to review when you receive your notice. And just for more background on the appeal process, there's actually 3 levels of appeal in Nova Scotia. So initially, assessors at Property Valuation Services do an initial review and see if any change is warranted that way. The second stage is the Nova Scotia Assessment Appeal Tribunal, or we like to use acronyms, and that's the NSAT, and that is where the appeal would be heard in front of a tribunal, and a member of NSAT would make a decision. And then the third level is the Utility and Review Board, which you may be familiar with as they hear other things beyond assessment appeals as well. And that's the highest level. So I won't get into the weeds on that, but those are the 3 levels to consider. Next slide, please, Paul. Perfect. This is the final slide, but we can take any questions after. But this is just our contact information. So as I mentioned, our website down there, pvsc.ca. Also, our phone number, the 1-800 number, and the email. And both of those are great for even if you have questions about your assessment, not necessarily about appeals, although you can ask those questions as well. We have lots of staff on the phones right now taking calls, so please feel free to utilize those contact information details. And I just want to wrap up by saying thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here online. I wish we could have been there in person, but please feel free if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. I'm going to open the floor up here. First, we have Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. I got a couple of questions. I'm glad to hear your voice and see you on the camera, Laura. You helped me out different times over the years with residents that were calling up worrying about farmland, et cetera, and you were very, very helpful. And I was wondering, out of the 288 appeals, how many of them got it knocked down a little?
You want me to take that one, Laura?
Sure, yeah, thank you, Paul.
Typically, what we see is about a third, and a third. And there's three kind of decisions made when it comes to appeals. One is when a property owner appeals, typically we can do what's called a confirmation, which means PVSC confirms the value of their assessment. So basically, we say we think your assessment's good. And that's usually done after looking at the account. An assessor will look at an account. Sometimes the assessor talks to the property owner, sometimes they do not. But after the analysis, after possibly talking to the property owner, they may confirm the assessment. Also, quite often when we do talk to property owners and explain why their assessment is what it is and what the numbers mean and what the data is, confirm the data and that, a lot of times property owners will withdraw their appeal. So we have about 1/3 that are withdrawn. And across the province, we typically have about 1/3 that, after our analysis, do get adjusted. I don't know the exact figure for Pictou County, but I would say that it's pretty much right on par in that it looks like out of the 288, certainly there were less than 100 that were amended. And an amendment can mean anything. It could be, it could add, maybe there's an extra bathroom put on there, maybe the value, maybe we need to take it off, takes the value down a little bit. It could be, something to the effect that, their garage is no longer there and we have to remove it, that type of thing. Or it could be an address change.
Thank you for that much. The other thing I was going to ask you, I know there's nobody drives around and now, and you do it with Google Map or drones or something like that, but what I found that when new people move in, and they want land and they come from somewhere else, they'll pay whatever they want to get it. So that's adjusting the land and the value of the properties all around it. So why is that? Why, if something one time was worth $49,000, now it's $250,000 because they wanted it, and then you fellas jacked the other prices up. Where's the methodology, or where's the thinking that goes with that?
You want to give that one a try there?
Sure, yeah, I can answer that.
Oh, and there's just one other thing I wanted to ask Les before, or not Les, Paul. What is he to Les Beazley?
Perfect. I'll try to answer your question.
He's not going to
It's a
say.
very common question, so we appreciate that. So one of the things we talk about, and apologies we didn't have the longer presentation tonight, which typically goes into more detail about sales. But typically with sales, we're looking at like the entire market for the county or for the neighborhood or the area. And we would look at things like outliers. So say someone, paid way beyond market and it was just the one sale versus sort of the majority of sales that are within those market parameters that we see a pattern or a trend. And that's the beauty of mass appraisal. We're always looking at all of the data and reviewing those transactions in a lot of detail. And PVSC does take a lot of time doing that. It's quite a significant portion of our assessment cycle. So while that is true, there are people coming in from out of town and buying things at whatever price they see fit. As long as that's not typical for the market, you're not always necessarily going to see a market increase that way. So we try to have balance and look at the whole picture. Anything you want to add, Paul?
Well, I thought I heard a question there that was directed specifically at me, and I couldn't quite pick it up, but it sounded like someone mentioned my father's name.
Yeah, I asked you what you were to Les Beazley, and that's your father, is it?
He is my father, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll not be near as hard on you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dewar. All right, go ahead, Warden Parker, you have a question?
Thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm just going to refer, without putting any names on it, to a couple of issues that I've dealt with PVSC, or indirectly, I guess, with PVSC. One was a case of a sale of a property, and after the property was sold, they looked at the taxes, or the property tax bill, but at the assessment, and I figured, oh God, this is way, way too low, like about 10 times too low. And but PVSC would not adjust that. The lady that bought the house was billed for that extra taxation that was there, you know, not her taxation, but, you know, when they adjusted it, she was willing to pay her portion for the rest of the year or whatever, but the other bill she didn't think was hers because it was a mistake of PVSC, and they agreed that it was a mistake from what our finance person told us. But they would not go back on that. So is that a policy of PVSC that if the mistake, even if it's theirs, that they will not correct that in this case for the buyer?
Well, I think I can answer that absolutely not. We talk to property owners on a regular basis all through the year, and if the data is not correct, we will correct it. And if there's an error made, we would typically correct it under Section 57 of the Assessment Act. However, I'm not situation that relates to this, but if there's an AAN whereby there's still some questions about it, you know, feel free to send it to myself or Laura, or contact our service or inquiry desk, and we'll definitely take a look at it, because we take a look at you know, thousands and thousands of inquiries and have questions from property owners all year. The only thing I can think of in that case that we do see every once in a while is after the state date, that December 1st date, if a property gets subdivided and gets sold after that date, it's up to the legal, our assessment's already set at December the 1st. So if it sells up after that date, I've seen instances where if it's a duplex, and it gets subdivided again after that date or whatever, that the assessment notice goes out to the original owner, which is probably a contractor or something, that in the full amount, and that they, you know, and it may also go out to the new owner of one side in the full amount, but it's up to those adjustments at sale time, the legal adjustments and the dollar adjustments at that time that their lawyers do, to say, this is your fair portion of the assessment and the taxes that are owing. But that's the only situation I can think of where that gets tricky. But maybe the situation is different in your case, or the case that you know of. So if you want to send that to us, we'll take a look at it.
Okay, I'll check with the owner and see if anything ever got resolved, but at the time I was told, no, PVSC doesn't alter whatever they've already done. But I want to move on to the other one, to not take up too much time here, but so I've had several cases where after Fiona, and so a person had maybe 25, 40 acres of forest land, pretty well all blew down, as everybody's did, and in some cases they had somebody in to salvage what they could. In other cases, they just left it laying. But in either case, their tax rate or their assessment went significantly up, because that forest land, which had been $1 an acre, all of a sudden became listed as resource land. And the resource land, you know, was valued at a whole lot more. Of course, it doesn't get the treatment that forest land does. And I'm still dealing with one case where he did appeal it to whatever the appeal NSAT or whatever board was, and got a reduction, but not to what he thought it should be. He still had a 15% or more increase because of that that being claimed as resource land. So he's now appealing it to the UARB, but he's been told it'll be at least a year because of the number of appeals they're getting. So I'm just curious as how many, you gave us a list when Chester Dewar asked about, you know, a third, and a third, but how many go on to the UARB So I'm looking for two answers, I guess. How many go on the UARB where they have such a long list, you're a year behind, it's like waiting for a doctor? But also, is there anything that can be done to correct what's being, the way the forestry land is being treated in some cases, and having it, you know, it's listed as worth a lot more when it's all fallen down than it was when it was standing, because it's now listed as resource. That's kind of complicated, but anyway, that's my question.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting situation, but like I say, unless I know the details of the exact account, it's hard to really comment on it, other than the only thing I could think of in that case was if they had road frontage and a portion of it was determined to be sort of residential or something like that, road frontage with other properties in the area. I don't know. I can't envision that the trees being blown down would change our assessment of the property. The only way that it would be, in my opinion, were that they were being cleared for future development. Otherwise, it would stay as just natural wooded forest property, as long as they're, actually bona fide foresting that land. If it were determined that they're not bona fide foresting the land or trying to regenerate or doing silviculture and those types of things, potentially an assessor might look at it to see if it's truly forest land or not. But there's all kinds of different things we've got to take a look at in those situations for sure.
Now, this is an older gentleman who has no intent, I think he's in his early 80s, has no intent of reforesting that or anything. It just all blew down. It's a mess. I don't think anybody can hold him responsible to reforest it. It will reforest on its own. It'll just take a few more years than if he planted the trees, but it doesn't seem fair to him, that his land went way up in value. I could see if it was on a prime piece of highway, but it's way up in the sticks in West River Station. It's not a prime development land or anything like that. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that sometimes forestry people, especially after Fiona, didn't seem to get treated fairly, that their land was suddenly worth a lot more. They couldn't get anything out of their trees, yet they're being taxed more.
Yeah, the legislation as far as exempt forestry property is, can be a little bit tricky at times, and maybe it was a situation there, I don't know, but another one, if there was some, if you had an account or anything like that, send it through, we'll take a look at it. And I'm not sure if there's another part to that question or not, but if there was, I've forgotten it if there was, but Laura.
Just how many go to the UARB, because they seem so backed up. If they're backed up, there must be a lot of appeals going to them. Oops. He timed out.
That wasn't the question.
Not one that you couldn't take anyway.
Seems to be on his end.
Must be on his end. Oh, well, that question, sorry for taking so long, but that question wasn't vital.
We still have Laura? We must still have Laura.
Yeah, we lost internet there. Yeah.
Here on our end.
So we lost you there for a second. Can you hear us now?
Yes,
Okay.
can see you and hear you.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I thought maybe you didn't like the answer to me.
We thought you didn't have one.
Yeah. All right, we'll move along. Counselor Boyles, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, and maybe I missed it, but on the appeals, like if, say I turn around and I put an appeal in saying I thought my assessment was too high, is there such a thing that they could come and find out, no, it's not high enough, and put it up? And if so, how many percentage of does that happen?
I can answer that, Paul. I just want to make sure I heard the question. You were wondering how many are increased that file appeals?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Actually, we generally don't practice that type of increase. Sometimes what will happen is we'll see like an error, or not error, an error, I guess, or some sort of correction opportunity, but we typically would put that through the following year. It would be quite rare to do a straight increase as for an appeal. Typically, they end up as decreases or confirmations, as Paul described earlier, where no change. So there. I don't believe we even have statistics on increases because they're so negligible.
I don't remember any being increased on appeal. I've been with PVSC for, well, 8 years now, and I don't recall any right off the bat. I'm sure there have been some, but typically it would be a case where someone has constructed something and, I don't know, they decide to appeal, and, you know, we look at the data. When we look at the appeals, we make our judgments based on the, what the appellant is appealing. So if they're appealing something like, I don't have this, or you know, this was, you know, this hasn't been here for years, or the waterfront, you got it value too high or something, we will judge the appeal on that. So we'll either confirm it, they'll withdraw it, or it will be amended. However, if in the, as Laura said, if in the process of looking at that appeal and reviewing the data, we find out that they put on a big addition without a permit, or that they built a garage in the back, or a big boathouse down by the water without a permit or something like that, we will correct the data for the next year. The Act requires that we do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Counselor Thompson. Go ahead, Andy.
Thanks. Good information here tonight. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I guess I'm curious about how you collect data and how you categorize homes. Like, is there, do you do it by square footage? And the other one I'm curious about is new first-time home buyers. Do you keep track of that? And I'm trying to figure out what the average cost of a new home is, a starter home I'll call it, whatever that is. It's a 2-bedroom bungalow with 1 bathroom. Is that data that you may have on hand?
We do have data. We do have data similar to that. Might not necessarily be specific to new homes per se, but we do look at data within age ranges, and we do categorize them. We have groupings whereby, for instance, I've got some numbers here. Like, we group, like, houses in Pictou. We group houses in the before 1940, built between 1940 and 1980, built between 1980 and 2000, and built after 2000, in those types of age groupings. But we also group them based on whether they're, you know, story and a half, bungalows, sort of building quality, so on and so forth. So I don't have the value on a new home, but in those sales that we analyzed that Laura had mentioned, I think it was It's 588 or 606 or something sales, I forget. The value of homes built after 2000 was $376,000 in the county. That's the average value. Now remember, these are 2023 sales, so they're not rate up. You know, the current sales, we will analyze those in the coming year. But let me give you a little bit of information here, just for your own personal interest, just in case you ask. But the majority of homes, or the most transacted homes, are houses built between 1980 and 2000 in Pictou County. And before COVID, in 2020, the average selling price was $173,000. This past year, using the 2023 sales data, the values were $258,000. Laura, you want to add anything about new homes, or?
I was just gonna add that there were 606 transactions in Pictou County.
So
Exact figure.
I just have one more quick question here. You mentioned the 14,000 odd number of properties that are under the cap. How many of those are long-term homeowners? And I guess it goes into what I was asking before, because the challenge that we're talking about affordability and getting people into a home, but especially those 25 to 30-year-olds, and they're going to pay 2 or 3 times the property tax that I pay, because I have the benefit of being in the house for 25 years and having that cap number. So I guess how many of those are long-term homeowners, that 14,000 number? Do you have that information?
I do not have that number. I'm not sure if there's any way we could ever find that number other than going into our data and doing a search for what's called the base year that they entered the cap. So when a new purchaser buys a home, that resets the base year. The majority of people on the cap, now I don't know what the percentage is, but the base year, they've been living in their home since the base year that the cap was first put in, that where people became eligible automatically was 2007. So there is a good percentage of people in Nova Scotia, and I would suggest in Pictou County too, because they love to live there, that have been in their homes since 2007, that would have benefit of the cap. What I can tell you is that prior to COVID, you were running at about a 75% eligibility, about 75% of your homes, residential properties with homes on them, dwellings on them, about 75% were eligible for cap before COVID. Because market values went up quite significantly during that COVID period and continue to be quite high, you're now at about 91% of properties on the cap, eligible for the cap. So the cap's even more impactful for you now than it was before.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Councillor McDonald. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you for your presentation there. Just to go follow Councillor Thompson's question about caps, how long does it take the cap to start again after the property is sold? Does it ever cap again? Like a new home buyer buys a home, and when's it cap comes into effect again?
You want to take that one, or you want me to?
Sure, yeah, it's the following year. So for myself, I'll use myself as an example. I bought a home in 2022, and then the cap, it was out for 2022, if you will, and then restarted in 2023. So that's my personal example. So for anyone buying this year, they would reset for next year.
And that cap just goes at market value from there on, does it? Like market value at the cap?
Yeah, so it would take, so let's use the current assessment roll. It would be the 2025 market value of like the baseline, if you will, and then whatever that cap is next November, when we find out, based on the October CPI. So this year it was 1.5, and so we would take that amount and add it to the baseline market value, and then that would create the next year. But we don't know what that's going to be, so we can't estimate that, of course.
Okay.
I'll throw in a couple of caveats there too, just in case you're wondering in the back of your mind. If it's a family sale, they can retain the cap. And if the property is purchased by a business, businesses are not eligible for the cap. So if it's in a business name, or a numbered company name or something like that, it's not eligible for the cap. And if they take it and they move out of province, or they buy it from out of province, non-Nova Scotia residents are not eligible to receive the cap as well. There's a few other tweaks in there too, but those are the main ones.
Okay, thank you.
Well, seeing no more questions, oh, go ahead. I was too quick to speak there. Go ahead, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I noticed the assessment for the county's up by almost 10% right across the whole county, like not the towns, or just the county. But does that mean your house goes up 10% if you live way out in a rural district versus an area where more homes are being built and sold, say next to town somewhere? Does your assessment go up?
The county would be broken up into various neighborhoods. I would suggest there's probably, and I don't know for sure, but I know when I was an assessor, typically there'd be like 20 neighborhoods, and they could be rural, they could be in what you might consider a more urban area, or closer to town, some could be out farther. So we break them up into homogeneous type areas, group them in those types of areas, where the markets would sort of fluctuate in similar manners, you know, waterfront, around lakes and things like that, or it could be anything to do with geography or the types of homes and things like that. So they will fluctuate differently depending on what the market's telling us. So one neighborhood may go up a lot, and one may go up a little bit, one may go down a little bit, may stay flat. Overall, in Pictou County, you're right, the market value assessment for residential properties was up 9.6% this year. However, that's mitigated by the cap. So given that cap is 1.5%, the actual taxable lift, I'll call it the lift because I know that's what you call it around the budget tables and things like that, the taxable residential lift is 5.7%. So not all properties going up 10%.
Yeah, I just seen the assessments up 10, but under the, whatever that's called, it's not 10, the cap, it's 5.7 is what you're saying.
Right, and it goes up differently in different areas. So some may be up 15%, some may be up 5%, some may be, you know, flat, that type of thing.
So do you have
depends on the neighborhood, the sales, what the market's telling us.
You have a computer program that tells you how that's done, or how do you do that?
Well, we have 130 employees across the province looking at, and many of those are assessors, probably 60 or so assessors. And we have a team that looks at sales. We look at sales within neighborhoods, within municipalities. We don't compare Cape Breton with Pictou, or we don't compare Yarmouth with Pictou or HRM with Pictou. We look at Pictou, and they compare the properties, and they will take a look to see what the market's doing and what sales are doing in the various geographic areas.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
homogeneous market areas, sorry.
Okay, well, seeing that there's no more questions, I'd like to thank you both, Paul and Laura, for your wonderful presentation this evening. I think we had a nice to have an opportunity to ask some questions and see your presentation. So I thank you both very much for taking the time this evening, and I love your white ducks in the background, Paul.
What was that?
I love your ducks in the background. I spotted them.
Yeah. There's stuff in the background too.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thank
for having us, and, you know, we'll come back next year if you want us.
All right, thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Bye now.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. We'll see you. Bye.
Okay.
My gosh, he didn't want them fellas. When we started, when we had to go with them, it was
Did against them.
Okay, so now we'll move on. After our presentation, there's no correspondence this evening. So we'll move on to number 8, our reports not requiring a motion. First, we have our communications report. And this is for the month, I guess it's December, January. Okay, go ahead, Councillor, or Warden Parker.
I just wanted to comment on the top 10 posts, that the climate action meetings were the top of that list, which is good to see, because we've gotten a lot of criticism lately in the last couple of months since we started holding community meetings of a lot of people saying, I never heard of this. I didn't know this was happening. I only found out last minute from my neighbor or whatever, so it shows that some people are finding it or looking at it. It came top on the list there. But I do want to comment that, you know, we're halfway along with these meetings right now. There was 8 in January, so 4 are done, 4 to go, and we have had reasonably good, well, very good turnouts in some places. Caribou was the best, I think, at over 40, and River John was over 25, and the others were 16 or 18, which are all good turnouts. January is not a good time or an easy time to get people off the couch. So I'm quite pleased with the turnouts that we've had, and we have 4 more to go. Weather's been cooperating reasonably good with us. So some people have put a lot of work, our subcommittee, action subcommittee, and Larry's working with us too, and with them. And so please get the word out there if you can. There's a meeting tomorrow night in my home community in Durham, and then we're into Hillside, I think, after that. Yeah, and then next week, Little Harbor on Tuesday, and Abercrombie on Thursday. So we have 4 more to go, so hopefully the weatherman cooperates with us. And but please get the word out that if you have, the big interest has been in the coastal and flooding, and certainly in the fires in the more inland areas. But there's a lot of other things discussed there, and I think the presentations are going well. Like I say, the crowds are going well, and the weather's cooperating, so we just need to get people out for the next 4 meetings. So that's why I use this as an opportunity to advertise those meetings.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions for the communication report? Seeing none, we'll move along to the recreation report. Any questions or comments? This is for, I guess it says November, but. Okay, seeing no comments or questions, we'll move along to the warden's report. Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. Just in your report, Warden met with MLA Marco McLeod regarding provincial questions about the high-speed internet project. Was that something coming from the province?
Yes, did come from the province. A letter came from the province requesting, or perhaps something a little stronger word than requesting, requiring maybe us to, they said because of some concerns received, complaints, concerns, whatever the word used, from Pictou County, that they wanted a detailed analysis of how our project was going, both in terms of time-wise and in terms of dollars and cents and other issues. And so we requested, we being myself, the CAO, and the deputy, to meet with our provincial representative, Marco McLeod, to get some idea of where this is coming from. And he knew nothing more about it than we did when we met with him. He hadn't heard about it. So he said he would look into it. But in the meantime, we, Brian did, I should say, you know, started on the work. I think there was a deadline of January the 10th. So that was right over the Christmas period, so it was a little difficult. I think they were sent 181 pages eventually, and there's still some more to come from the accountants, Deloitte, you know, to answer some of the more accounting type questions. So that was the reason for meeting with our MLA at that time to see if we could find out what was the reasoning behind that letter.
So have we heard any more since you sent the report in?
No, I don't think. You sent it in, Brian. Everything was sent in. I don't think we got any response. They're probably maybe waiting for the Deloitte information. You have anything to add to that, Brian?
I had a conversation with the province this afternoon, 180 pages, working their way through it, basically. So they said they may have follow-up
Okay.
after they get all the way through it, but.
But that's the answer to why we met with Marco.
Any further comments or questions for the warden? Do you have a few comments yourself,
I
Warden?
do, Madam Chair. It usually seems that we meet at shared services and mayors and wardens meeting was this morning. It usually ends up being the morning before this meeting. There are a couple of things coming in terms of shared services, in terms of our collection of both garbage, not so much the composting, but garbage and recycling. So we've known for quite a while that recycling is going to change on December the 1st. It'll be taken over by the private companies at that time. Probably Pictou County Shared Services will still be collecting it, collecting the recyclables, but it will be handled by Circular Materials is the name of the company, and they're working on behalf of all the producers of packaging. So it's EPR for PPP, to do with packaging and paper products and plastic. So that will come into effect, and it shouldn't be much change for our residents. Everything should be very similar for the first while anyway. It may change as time goes on. But we did find out this morning, first time I heard of it, that in terms of the garbage collection, there will be no more garbage collection on Mondays from now on. So if you're on a Monday pickup, or anybody is, that will be gone. And it's partly because there's so many Mondays or holidays and whatnot, and they have to then put it on to another day. And so they're doing away with Mondays. It'll only be Tuesday to Friday. And that way they can use Monday sometimes as a fill-in day if we miss the day because of weather or whatever. So that change, I think, is coming relatively soon. The other change that they asked us to take to our council committees and get some information, they're looking at having a bulky item. You can put out one bulky item every week if it's accepted by, it has to be accepted by all the municipalities. So if you had an old couch or a dryer or something that quit, you could put it out. They will not pick it up that day because those trucks are not able to do that, but they will send somebody out in the next few days with a new truck they're buying, I think, to handle this bulk stuff. And that's the hang up here, is it's going to sit for a few days until they send somebody out to pick it up. So on their regular day in that area, they're going to mark down where these are, and that way the truck knows where to go, so they're not traveling all the roads with nothing on them. So that's what's going to be tried, but it's only going to work if all the municipalities agree. And some of the towns have real hang-ups with it, mostly because they don't want old coaches and whatnot sitting at all along streets in town for 3 or 4 days, because of just the looks of it as much as anything. And then if you get a big snow and end up in a mess. So that one may or may not happen, unless all the municipalities agree. So I want to throw it out there tonight as something that's being looked at. We don't have to have a big discussion on it tonight. We can have it at our next month's meeting, I think, and determine whether it's something that we think is good for our rural municipality or not. But it is a way for people who have no way to transport these things. They don't know anybody with a truck or whatever, and in town it's a little different because they have a fair number of companies around that go around and pick this stuff up on a regular basis. But anyway, it's an option that's in the contract, in the new contract, if we want to go for that. But even if we decide it was okay, it may not go anyway, because one of the towns may decide they don't want to go for it and they can't do it piecemeal, I guess. So those are just a few things, Madam Chair, I want to mention that came up in this morning's meeting.
Okay, perfect. So we'll add that,
To next month's
the
agenda.
large item or bulky item pickup.
Bulky item pickup, yeah. We might have a few more details then, too. It will cost, Earl said this morning, $1.50 per household. I mean, it's not, we're not gonna build the individual households, but that would be the cost of having this program, $1.50 per household.
Okay. All right, we have 2 more questions here. Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Just wondering, on the recycling, is there a cost savings to the municipalities?
Like $1 million. $1
million
Is what Earl mentioned this morning, roughly $1 million.
Perfect.
There may be some offsets to that. One I mentioned to him this morning is that I'm on the Divert Board, Divert Nova Scotia, and Divert gives diversion credits to the individual municipalities on that formula. Too complicated for me. But, you know, we got roughly 300,000 last year on these diversion credits, and that's tied in somewhat with recycling. And so the board at Divert, which doesn't have very many municipal councillors on it, they're from all kinds of other worlds, but they've never been very big, I don't think, on the dollars going to diversion credits to municipalities. So now that we're not doing the recycling anymore, well, they're questioning, you know, should we be giving them the money? So I think the regional chairs are looking at, can we get that money under education or some other reason rather than recycling? But it's at least $1 million, and hopefully they don't claw too much back.
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Warden, on the recycling, is that company going to be still located in Kemptown, or is it in some other spot where it's going to be?
The actual,
I guess my question, are they going to process it in Kemptown, or are they?
that's questionable. It's still up in the air, I think, at the provincial level almost, as to how that's going to happen. The Circular Materials is a national company. They're already doing the same thing in Ontario and I think BC. And they're what they call the Pro. And the Pro is basically just a name for the organization that's collecting everything for all the people that are producing the recyclables. And but right now, they call that a MRF, I guess. I forget what those letters stand for, but the one in Kemptown is a MRF. Right now, it's going to remain there. But there is talk that this larger company that's used to dealing in larger amounts may put one large one up near the border, whether it's in Amherst or Moncton or whatever, to handle everything in the Maritimes. That's the way the fear is that that's the way it may go and take the jobs away from Kemptown. You know, but it's really going to be up to them. If they're responsible now, and that's why we're retaining $1 million. They're responsible for it, so they're going to make the decisions. And the feeling I've gotten is generally that eventually there'll be one big MRF somewhere to handle it.
Okay. All right, seeing no more questions, we'll move along. Internet report. Any comments or questions on this month's internet report? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
I asked, or I emailed Rihanna there earlier, but these sales and that stuff, it doesn't apply to somebody that doesn't have the internet yet, does it? Like if it, for District 1, it says District 1, somebody wants to get in on one of these deals or whatever, but it doesn't apply until it's accessible in District 1, does it?
Yeah, you're right. It won't apply until we have a service in District 1, but we do plan to have various campaigns throughout the year, so there shouldn't be any reason why any new community getting access to services wouldn't also have the ability to access promotional programs as well. Yeah.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions? Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've talked to Rihanna about this some, but I just want to make sure everybody knows, maybe they already do, but about the fact that our county is going to be selling the fiber directly to the customer and not just through the 3 internet service providers or whatever that we have now, but that Pictou County will be selling that directly as well, and when that might start. And price-wise, if it's in the same ball field and whatnot.
So we are getting ready to launch our, what we're calling our retail service, so not to be confused with MOPC network. When we refer to that, we're referring to the entire fiber network, which includes our other service providers as well. Our retail service is branded as Fiber First, and we have been pre-selling that since before Christmas. And we have about 30 people that we're looking to get signed up or get activated now before the end of the month. We're just getting ready to start actually delivering the equipment and getting these guys online. The price point is $65 flat rate for 1 gig of internet access with no data caps, no contracts, of course, either. They always have the option to search out the other providers if they're so interested. And yeah, we're very excited to have that coming out, as well as in the coming months, we'll be getting ready to launch something we talked about in the December meeting, the Fiber Max package, which will be basically the only other residential service we're gonna offer when that comes out, and that will be a 5 gig service, along with a upgraded router, which will deliver a very superior, seamless service within the home for people that are high demand users or require that. And that price point has not been finalized, but I can tell you it'll be more than 100 and significantly less than Starlink.
Okay.
Thank you.
Counselor Boyles?
Yeah, with these promotions and stuff they're putting on about the internet and everything, and then what we had the other night there, a lot of my constituents are asking me, well, why aren't we getting it? Well, I just told them we're sold out to the federal government, but the thing is that they're saying, and which is true, when we advertised this internet, day one, it was everybody in Pictou County. And what happened? There's certain places, like I guess Auburn and Hillside and likely some other ones that are being left out, and it's just not fair. It's just not fair at all.
Okay. Counselor Boyles, thank you. Counselor Bailey?
Madam Chair, I got 2 or 3 questions. One, so we're at 23% of the customers that are hooked up. What would you say the percent of the ability for people to hook up for the whole county? Are we at, are we at 25%? Are we at 50%? The area that can get the county internet.
So that is the numbers that these are based on, not all the county population or all the residents. It's the households that have access to a service right now, whether it be on our wireless network or on our fiber network. So that is the numbers that it's taken into account, and I'm not sure if they have that exactly on here. No, so it's based on our homes passed, so the amount of homes that we can deliver the fiber service to, so 800 or 558 of those, if I could back divide that, and that's basically gets you the 23% take-up rate, or the take-up rates that you see here. And this one, it's 19% for this month over month. Yeah, so it's not taking in all of the residents, just where we can serve today.
Okay, so no, I guess what I was looking for was a number. Like when I do that, when I look at 23%, if I go at 25, we're looking at roughly around that roughly 4,000
Yeah.
residents
Yeah.
have the opportunity for internet service.
That's right, yeah, and that's on the fiber side specifically, yeah.
And my second question, Madam Chair, is Starlink. The ones that are having issues with getting our service, are we still paying? Because I know we were, prior to we were putting, if somebody put in, the county would reimburse them the cost of the installation. Is that true?
Province of Nova Scotia.
Province does.
Yeah.
Are they still doing that, do you know?
As long as there's money in the fund, yes.
Okay, so if somebody that can't get, and they want to do Starlink, they could go ahead with it and
Yeah.
possible get, okay. And what is my third question was, for the ones that that's having issues with the wireless. I understand, and I think you told me, and Brian told me that that you were testing another type of, called a receiver, I don't know exactly what the name of it is. I understand that's still in the testing mode. When will that test be done, and how soon if it's successful, how soon can we expect that it would be put out on the market?
So we're currently just waiting for a study that's being done to capture, it's taken the entire map of Pictou County, all of our fiber project, and anybody who's left over, anyone who's currently on our wireless service today, as well as anybody who may not be getting the fiber right away or in this current part of the plan. So we're just waiting for that. That's due back by the end of this month. And what that's going to do is give us an entire overlook on the best places to put any new towers, because we do have the ability to put up some new towers to support the overall infrastructure still. So that will help us identify locations that will basically serve all of the identified households that we can't serve currently today on fiber. So when that comes back, they'll use all the towers that we have access to now, like I said, as well as up to 6 other ones that are already planned for, and they will give us a report on what we need to do in order to hit all of those homes. So as soon as that comes back, that'll come back to us here, and probably Brian and his governance team, and we will then make the approval if we decide to go forward, if we're happy with the total report, which we have been happy with the results to date. And from there, we'll start to replace the current equipment on towers one by one until we're done.
Okay, Madam Chair, just to follow up on that. So are you saying that when this study comes back to improve the if it says that it will improve the wireless, we would have to put up more towers to do that? Or where the present tower is working on a road where on the right-hand side of the road they're getting it, on the left-hand side of the road they can't get a single? So would we have to put up another tower in that case, in those situations? And I know that's one-off, but I guess I use that as an example.
So we wouldn't have to put another tower up in that location. Maybe it's possible we don't have to put any, but we just don't know until the study comes back. So what will happen is we'll outfit the current tower. So for instance, if you have a tower now that you're saying there could be a dead zone on one side of it, the technology we'll use, it has 4 heads. It covers a 90-degree section. So if you have four heads on there, you can cover all 4 sectors and have service in every area. It's different the way it's on the towers than the current equipment we have now, and it offers a more thorough coverage with just the 4 heads instead of various radios and receivers on the tower. Yeah. You're welcome.
Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you explain to me a couple of these graphs? I have no idea whatsoever what they mean. You have a MOPC Network Analytics website audience. There's a blue line there. There's some data underneath it, which I do not understand whatsoever what that means. Could you explain that to me, please?
So this is a map from our website. So we have all the traffic recorded now. So this is showing us our audience over the last 30 days. And I guess the peaks you see are the high visit dates where we would have had more traffic on the site. And
So this is just somebody that's trying to find information on, goes to the website and looks.
exactly,
That's simply what this is.
simply.
Okay. The one below that is, it says an organic Facebook reach. That's the same thing, is it? That's, people are trying to find out information about the project through Facebook. Is that right?
So this has to do with our posts and the content we put on and how far it reaches in the audience. So it's similar to what we had seen in the communications report, where it was just in point form listed out what the reach was for each post. This kind of just summarizes it in the graph over those dates, so you would have to correlate those dates with the posts to know
Okay.
exactly what it was.
So as we go forward, could you put a little disclaimer underneath each one of the graphs? Do we have a brief description what they are? Rather than just the graph itself,
Absolutely.
right? Just for somebody like me that doesn't understand, right? Second, and the third thing, I guess, is there's still no financials with this. There's been people and counselors in this council chamber that's been asking for financials for at least a couple of years. And we still don't see any revenue generation indication that there's any revenue generation. When can we see that? When's that going to be available to council?
Well, I'll let Brian take that one.
Sure. So we just got the financials that came in late beyond the package, so they do need to be, I guess, massaged to make them understandable a little bit, broken down into
fine.
categories.
So when can we see them?
We'll say next month we'll have a financial kind of summary of where we're at.
Very good.
type thing.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for Rhiannon there. This new wireless transmitter you're talking about, I forget what it's called, it starts with a T, I think. What's the preliminary information on that? Have you heard? Is it working really well, or is it so-so, or what, you know?
Yeah, we do have one test unit, and we have them on our River John tower, and we have done some preliminary testing. So we've gone around, we've taken basically our projection software that tells us what we should have based on that technology, based on the landscape, et cetera. And we've had our technicians go around and do tests to confirm that those are in fact the speeds and the signal that they would get at these specific locations. And in all circumstances, it's performed better than even hoped. It's been very promising results.
So when will you be moving forward with that? When the study comes in and the...
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're just waiting for the report so we can basically go at it with everything in mind at the same time. We don't want to do it piece by piece. We want to make sure we're capturing all pieces that are relevant before we move forward with any investment further other than the test kit. So hopefully right away, I would like to say, but I'm sure there's some other people that will want to review and before that decision's made, hopefully as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few questions. Pardon me, just on one there concerning the Pictou Landing First Nations and where we had indicated before you were going to try to reach out. Has that been done yet, or have you made any progress with that?
I have not yet, Debbie, unfortunately, just with the Christmas break and some other things that have been on the go. But I will be doing that, and I also have some other avenues I want to research in terms of other funding that could be available to support that particular community. So hopefully the contacts I have are still relevant and are able to help us, and maybe we can work together to see what's possible.
Yep, sure, okay.
Yeah.
And just on the Pictou Landing not First Nations, Pictou Landing community itself, where they don't qualify for fiber because of this fiber cable running through their area, the wireless, if that does pan out, can they be part of this phase one, or do they have to wait now for Project X, even for that?
Absolutely not. As soon as that's up, anybody we can serve, we will be thrilled to be able to serve.
And just one other, just concerning the Deloitte information you were going to check, I think Brian and Wayne and Robert on Thursday morning with a meeting with Deloitte. Did you make any headway with that concerning getting those financials out to us in a timelier fashion than we seem to be getting from them?
Yeah, no, I think we will do that. I'm not sure they're the only holdup, though. I mean, the reality is our own internal documents were not ready until November.
Okay.
So our statements were due by the province the end of the year, or end of September, so
Yeah, yeah.
we were later on our own as well, so.
Exactly, but we'd hoped to move up the timeframe a little better this year, which we're definitely not going to do, so. I thought you were going to have a discussion with Deloitte on Thursday concerning that.
We were in contact with them on Thursday, but the next time we meet with them, we're gonna certainly tell them what we want them by next
Okay.
for this year coming forward.
Okay,
That was
thank,
the decision we made.
all right, thank you.
Turn my mic on. Seeing no more questions, comments on the internet report, we'll move on to tax receivable report for the month of December 2024. As you see, we still have some substantial money left to collect. Any comments, questions? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Just, I think last month's meeting, Karen had indicated that mortgages or banks start taking their tax, paying the tax bills, and we didn't seem to see any progress in that this month. I'm just wondering, like, it just seems like it's staying high for uncollected taxes.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, Karen's not here this evening to answer that, but maybe keep that in mind for next month. Okay. All right, moving on to our,
Just on the
Yeah, go
taxes
ahead.
receivable, I think one of the things, you look at your number that you have, like comparative, so you're about $600,000 in the difference. You have to look at it also from the perspective that your tax amount that you're billing is, in many cases, it's not the same year over year. So we potentially add just like, say, $1.5 million in new taxes each year. So you got to look at it kind of as a percentage basis, not a raw number. This just provides you a raw number, right? So your collection rate could be 90% versus 88% last year, but your number is going to be bigger just because your
assessments are bigger.
your base amount is different, so.
Maybe, is that some information that we could get then, so we have a better handle on, instead of assuming that this is a huge number that.
Oh, it's a huge number,
But I mean, no, but if we can just,
but there's more,
If we
it's
see
more
more in
than
line
just
with-
the number. There is more behind it, so I don't know how we could make that, incorporate that in here, but,
all right.
but I just wanted to point that out, that year over year, there's another line there that we'll think about how we can incorporate that.
Yeah,
See-
as your taxation base is larger, therefore you're assessing more numbers and, yeah, okay.
Right, so we have say 5 million outstanding on 20 million. Last year, we had 4.3 on 19 million, so as a percentage, that may be the same number, like our collection rate may be the same year to year, type thing, so.
Okay, and we'll move along to our deed transfer tax report. As you see, we're down a little bit in December, but that's usual with people not wanting to move as much around the Christmas holidays. But still having a fantastic year for the deed transfer tax. Okay, that concludes our reports not requiring a motion. We'll move along to reports requiring a motion and accounts paid for the month of December. Okay, moved by Councillor Turner. You have seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wadden. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank the administration for the invoice descriptions on the internet project. It's made a world of difference to me as I look through these to see where the money's going. So thank you very much for accommodating that request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Comments or questions regarding accounts paid for the month of December? Okay, not seeing any. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. All right, let's get into our action items this evening. First, we have 2 streetlight applications. So the first one is in District 1 at 29 Robertson Road in Edgerton. And we have a second one in District 2 at 5448 Little Harbor Road, Little Harbor. So, to go ahead, Logan, is there anything you want to discuss on those 2 lights?
No, staff has reviewed both applications and both are favorable. Thank you.
Okay. Need a motion? Sure, yes, we can put them both in one motion, sure. Okay, do you want to second that? Okay, so moved by Councillor Wadden and second by Councillor McDonald that we accept both of those street light applications. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have a municipal service grant. This is for the Bayview Community Hall. They've, just as the final, I guess, one outstanding for District 3 for, from last year. It's an amount of $900. Moved by Councillor Palmer. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Seconded by Councillor Wadden. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have an extension request. So this one here is from District 5, Lionsbrook Hall Society, installation of a lift in hall. They had originally received $7,500, and they're unable to complete the work this fiscal year. So they've asked for an extension. Okay, moved by Deputy Warden Murray, seconded by Warden Parker. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have a Community Connectivity Fund extension request. This is for District 1 for American Mission Area Recreation and Social Association. This is $49,756.74. This is regarding renovations to the hall, and again, the work is unable to be completed during this fiscal year. Moved by Councillor McDonald. Throw your names in a hat there. Councillor Dewar, seconded by Councillor Dewar. Any questions or comments on this extension? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have a property tax write-offs. So as you see, there are 6 properties on this list. 4 of them are unable, I guess there was mobile homes on them, and they have been either taken off or demolished. And one is a mistake, error by PVSC, and the other is an error internally here. Okay, moved by Councillor Wadden that these amounts get wrote off. Seconded by Councillor Palmer. Any questions on these write-offs? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Just so I'm straight on it, we're writing off the taxes on them land, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, are we gonna have that land for a tax sale, or are we just writing them off?
Yeah, they don't exist.
Oh, there's no land?
There's nothing for us to sell at tax sale. There's nothing there. So in some cases, it doesn't exist. Mobile homes are gone, so there's for us to sell.
Well, there must have been something there if we're charging taxes, where we're just charging taxes on the mobile home. That don't make sense to me.
It would be residential when they would be taxed. So if there's a home, like a mobile home on the property, we would tax as residential. But if there's no home on the property, we would tax it as it would be in a different category.
Yeah, or the mobile home is not in the name of the property owner, so the mobile home is gone, so There's nothing there. Like, the land is still there, but it's in somebody else's name than the mobile home was.
But the tax don't carry over with, for new one?
No.
That's good to know.
No,
Thank you.
not on mobile homes, no.
Well, not on mobile homes, like if you got a mobile home on a piece of land,
And you own it, then they're tied together. But if you have a mobile home and it's not your land, it doesn't tie to the land, because the land is owned by person X and the mobile home's owned by person Y, so they don't link together.
I might be thick, but I'm just turning around, I can't, we tax the mobile home plus we tax the land?
Correct, if they're not in the same, yeah.
Mobile home isn't stationary, you can
So the
move it.
people that own the land are paying their taxes, the one that paid the mobile home didn't?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to say it, yeah.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And the homes are gone, so we don't know where they're at, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the write-offs? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have a request from Councillor McDonald regarding the Pictou County Fuel Fund. Councillor McDonald is asking the Finance Committee to consider a donation to the Pictou County Fuel Fund. A letter is presented to Council as correspondence in December is included with our package. So I'll turn it over to you, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering, I guess I assumed too much in life, but I just assumed, seeing this in the December thing, I assumed that we always donated to it, but apparently we didn't. I was talking to the chairman of the fund, and she said she would put in requests in the future, but we give to everything else, and this seems like a good thing to help out. We don't have to put ungodly money into it, but I mean, something backing this great program would be nice to, if we could in the budget.
Just a point of question, have they ever made application to our grant, council grants?
They did in the past. We have not received an application from them probably in the last 2 or 3 years. They used to apply
Every year.
and then,
Go ahead, Warden Parker.
I think like Councilor McDonald said, it's probably something we should be helping out, but normally it's on an ask basis, and because we always have twice many asks as what we have money to give out under council grants, so the deadline is February 28th, so you only deal with the ones that come in, because you get more coming in than what you can help. So I think that's why, if they're not on the list, asking, then they don't get helped. So therefore, to be helped, it would almost be, well, it would be for another year if we were to say, well, send us in and ask for the 25 year. So I guess then the question becomes, is there any other pots that we could take it from to help them out some this year? Because we're just coming into tonight probably, into the real heart of the heating season. We've gotten by relatively good so far. So the question I put through to our CAO, I guess, is there, another place that we could dip into for any to help them for this year, or not? We got to be careful, because we've already turned down a lot of other groups when we did them last February, that we said you were too late, so therefore you can't get your money. So we got to be careful how we do this. It would have to be not done under council grants, because we've already turned others down.
So if they do get in before February 28th, they will be
Considered.
considered? Okay.
Yeah. So is that,
Well, yeah, I still don't want an answer. Is there a way we could help them some this year, but not through council grants, because that wouldn't be fair to the ones that we already turned down?
so we don't have a lot of pots of money, so we do, in our council grants, we do have a contingency fund that we put in, I think it was might have been 25,000 that we put in. And that is for emergency type things that come up throughout the year, for projects that really the policy is worded that it's for grant requests for things that come up through the year that you would not have known existed at the deadline, February 28th of last year. I'm not sure this meets that definition because this is something that's been ongoing every year. And that's the way the policy is worded. So things that come up that
Whole emergency.
yeah, somebody is impacted by a fire or something like that, a group or whatever, you didn't, some event, I guess, right, that you could help, so.
Is it fair to say that we would encourage them to apply for this year?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Do
And I
we,
believe an application has been sent to them for the upcoming fiscal.
and that's good to bring it to the attention of them, Councillor McDonald. As we said, as Brian said, they haven't applied for the last couple of years, so hopefully they'll do that in the future.
That
And
was one of the questions too. If they apply for the capital grant this year, can they reapply it next year? Or
Yeah.
can
as long as they're reporting,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Okay, we'll move along. G, appointment to the Pictou Watershed Committee. I am the council representative for that committee, as the watershed is in District 3. And we've been searching for someone for quite a while to have somebody on that committee from District 3. And Robert Langell has put his name forward for that committee, and we currently have just the one vacancy.
So move.
Moved by Deputy Warden Murray,
Second it.
seconded by Councillor Palmer. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have the River John Lions Club tax reduction request. So property currently has its taxes reduced from commercial rate to residential rate and wishes to be fully exempt from paying taxes. As you see on your desk this evening, we received a sheet on our desk here showing the River John Lions Club along with comparable lodges or clubs throughout our municipality. So open the floor up. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so the sheet that was circulated tonight is just the Schedule B properties. And the River John Lions Club is a Schedule B property. So there's only 5 of them on the Schedule B type thing. And currently we reduce from commercial to residential for these properties. So the River John Lions Club, their bill is $1,700. We reduce it down to $799.52.
And that last one is the savings, is that reduction?
That's what we record as an expense.
Okay.
Because we have to, by law, we have to record it as an expense. So it goes on our expense, on our budget, that amount, so.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I guess first on this, nothing says is everybody, you look at that, you don't know if they're paying commercial or residential because it doesn't say, right?
They all are, is that,
Oh.
they're all,
Well,
they all are.
then, okay.
Yeah.
I guess
They're all
that's a-
reduced.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got the commercial rate in there and then we got the residential rate. So they're all paying,
The residential rate.
residential.
okay. I guess, I don't know how many years ago it was. I'm going to say around 12 years. The Lions Club was charged commercial. And they approached at that time wanting to go to be exempt. And it was brought up here at council, and I don't remember, I know council approved them to go to residential on the reason that they have a commercial identity in their building at that time, which they don't anymore. So does any of these other ones, I know River John, the Lodge, IF Hall has a commercial, do any of the other ones have commercial in them?
No, they're just assessed as commercial.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So at that time, it was decided to move them down, and now they have approached me again asking for exempt. I think I know the reason why this was sent out tonight, because that, by the looks of the request, that wasn't in as part of it, but like I said, I think I know why it was, and I can live with that. But my question is, it's a nonprofit organization. These are all. The only one that has requested something is the River John, and then again, I don't understand why we're taxing our nonprofit organizations that solely committed to the community that they belong into. And I guess just to continue this on, I'll move, I know it's not going to go anywhere, but I'll move that the River John Lions Club be exempt from taxes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I won't be supporting this motion. I think we did the best we could, I think, when we moved these from commercial to residential. They're not residential, but we agreed to tax them as residential. I think it's dangerous. It's not we're talking a huge amount of money, but it's dangerous when we keep saying to different groups that we're not going to tax you or we're going to give you a special benefit. The taxes still have to be paid by somebody. There's no free ride here for anybody because we have to provide the services to all of those residents, whether they're doing good things in the community or not. We still have to provide the services. So if people aren't paying their share, then somebody else has to pay that share. Our expenses don't go down, so we still have to pay those bills. And to my mind, in fairness, everybody should be paying their share. If we agree that they're doing good things in the community, so we move them from commercial to residential, that's a move that was approved at the time. But for us now to say it's tax exempt, well, who else would like to be tax exempt? There's a lot of people that would like to be, a lot of groups that would like to be. We already have quite a few. But I think we did the best we could for these groups, and you can bet that all of them are going to be coming if we give it to one. So I think it's a really bad precedent to set, and there will be more groups after that. And like I say, it doesn't cut the costs. It has to be paid by somebody. And why shouldn't everybody be paying a bit of a share so others don't have to pay more? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I second this motion. I'm a little puzzled as to why any of these are on here, because they're doing the work in the community, and they're no different than any other building out there, whether it's in Durham or Lorne but the one that I'm puzzled by is the Rebecca Lodge. We passed at a previous meeting that be put on the schedule to be tax exempt. We passed that about a year ago, and now it's still showing up here on this list. They're a nonprofit society, no different than the Lions Club, no different than the Plymouth Community Center, no different than the Hillside Hall, no different than any of these buildings that are dot our county. And the best thing we could do is to exempt all of these. But I'm puzzled as to why Rebecca Lodge is on there, because we've already agreed to put them on the schedule.
Yes. When was that? That was last year? 2024? 2023?
Could just be an error between the print version and the policy book, so we'll verify that for you.
by that, but none of, all these buildings I would classify, they're doing the same work. I know out in the Moore Lodge in Thorburn, they do breakfasts during they do all kinds of things. Like their community organization, the hall in Sunny Brae's a community center. It's got the Rebecca Lodges on it, but on the deed, but the society owns it. So I'm puzzled. And that's the only thing there's no commercial activity going on in that building in Sunny Brae. It's a community center.
All right, Councillor Boyles? Oh, do you want to speak to that first, Brian?
Yeah, the Rebecca Lodge should not be there. It is off the list.
Okay.
There's a difference between the book and...
Go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Yes, I'll be voting against it, and I'll tell you why. Councillor Thompson is completely wrong when he turns around and tries to take places like the Hillside Hall and put them in the same category, different category altogether. These places that are halls and like the IOF Hall and the Rivers John Hall, stuff like this, IOF, we're having things in our hall to pay our mortgages, to pay our taxes, to turn around and we charge for them to come in, have dances or showers or whatever the case may be. But a Lions Club is a service club, and they are turned around. They're not supposed to, at the end of the year, really, they're not even supposed to have any money left. They're supposed to have that money paid out to help the community and help the people in the community. But where are they getting the money to buy buildings? I mean, you see a lot of these Lions Clubs, and at one time I was the zone chair of the Lions Club, and turn around and I know that, I mean, for us to turn around and do that, you better watch out, because the doors are going to open, and I mean, you can give it to one, you got to give it to them all.
Okay. Councillor Dewar?
Thank you. I'm just wondering if these are just the last ones that haven't been exempt, because there's pages and pages of them that are exempt, different lodges. So, and the other thing I was wondering about, the third one down, it says trustees IOF Hall. Where's that at? It's not saying the name of it. Like it says Thorburn and Sunny Brae and River John, but
Oh,
it
that
doesn't.
one's in Springville, sorry.
Okay, that's Union number 30, Springville. So if these are the only ones that are left of all of them, I can't see any reason why we can't look after it, because in 2 or 3 years, there's not going to be anybody at any of them.
Go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Well, I think we already set the precedent by allowing Rebecca Lodge to be exempt. So I think that's already been done. So I don't see how we could turn down River John whenever we've already made the list smaller. And personally, I don't really think any of these should be in this list. I think they should all be exempt because of the work they do in the community. So I'd be supporting the motion to remove that from this round.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Parker.
I think you need to amend the motion. If you're gonna pass it for one, you need to pass it for them all, like Chester said. I can't see just saying the Lions Club should be exempt and nobody else is, so it's either all of them or none of them would be my take on it.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
This was last time, just the only reason it was just, I don't know, I can't understand why we would do it a year ago and then all of a sudden be still on this list. But I guess the reason that the motion was just for the Lions Club, because that's the one that requested it, that's all.
Okay, so would you like to amend that?
Hey, I'll amend it to accept them all, to make them all.
Councillor Wadden, you second that motion, I believe? Nope, sorry. So sorry. Yes, Councillor Thompson did that. Okay. So you're okay with the amendment to that? One second. Yeah, okay, Councillor McDonald?
Just one quick question. Is there any other places like these in the county that's not on this list? That's already exempt? Some similar to these places?
Community halls?
Like, if this motion goes through, is there gonna be 10 more next week? Or next meeting?
Highly unlikely. Most of the community halls are already on your Schedule A. Right? So these are fraternal organizations. This list, when we talked about it internally, predates, with the exception, I think, of the Lions Club that was added probably a few years back. Most of these predate Karen. Like, it dates back to an old bylaw. Not saying Karen's old, but it's prior to her employment.
You're lucky she's not here tonight.
So we're into like the 70s when this list was probably created, and it's based on legislation, right? That says I'm safe. So anyway, so that's where it comes from, and these ones have commercial assessments, so at the time, the legislation said you could reduce from commercial to residential.
When you say at the time, do you mean like 1976, or do you mean like now?
Well, the MGA now says that the distinguishing feature is council can write off the taxes of any group that it deems are doing what council would normally do, right? Or they're providing a service that council would normally provide. Right? So if they're providing recreation space, things like that, that you would normally have, you have the legal ability to do, then you can write them off. Right? But if the group is doing a car wash, running a car wash, council doesn't have the authority to do a car wash. So you couldn't write them off. Right? So that's what it is. They have to be doing something that you deem that you would otherwise be doing if you had to. So are they doing that? That's the question you have to ask and answer, right? If you believe they are, then you write them up, 100%. If you don't think they are, then you go part way.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? If we write someone's taxes off, but their services provided to that property, they would still pay water or sewer? It's just the actual
It's the
tax
taxes
portion.
that we do not write off services.
Okay,
It's
okay.
up to the king.
Just 1 second here. Before I go back, speaking second time, is there any councillors that haven't spoken yet that would like to speak? Go ahead, Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Of this list, is there any that rent to commercial, do they have any commercial identities on their property, or they're all?
Yeah, the IO Hall.
Yeah, in
It
River Town
does.
Hall.
That's what I was thinking. I think that might make it a little different, I think, in my mind. That's the only one that has commercial.
So if they have, sorry, so but just for clarification, the IOF Hall, River John, has a tenant in their building. Go ahead, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if we can defer this motion until we have some more investigation into the details that are here. I'm confused about the information that's coming forward, and I'd like to have real data in what's happening with each one of these halls before I make a decision. So, thank you.
Motion to table. To defer. How do you want to handle that? To table?
Well, it's in essence what he's
Yeah.
asking to postpone a decision, so it's a non-debatable motion.
Yeah. So we need a seconder for that table.
Just as a point of clarification, what information are you seeking?
Well, there's things on here, the question that Councilor Murray brought forward, whether there's any commercial enterprises in any of these halls. Is there any other halls that hasn't been identified? It just seems that, you know, you don't have complete information. That's, and maybe I'm misinterpreting what's being thrown out here, but I just don't have complete information to make the decision.
We could provide you information on what the use of the hall is, but as far as if there's any halls missing, there is absolutely no way we could do that. Generally, if the hall is paying tax, they're going to reach out to their counselor and ask to be exempt. So I would, on the second question, I'm fairly certain there's not many that are probably being missed as far as the exemption goes. But we can certainly do a profile on each of these. The River John one, I think, is probably the anomaly that it does have that commercial enterprise in it.
And if all the other councilors are happy with the information that's put out here, I can withdraw the motion. I have no problem with that. It's just that if everybody's happy and with the information that's given and wants to vote on that, I'll withdraw that motion. But for me personally, I'd like more clarification on the issue, that's all.
So with the motion to table and been seconded, so we'll have to vote on that first. Okay, so so we'll call for the vote on tabling this motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Contrary-minded, nay. Nays, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a tie, so
That motion is lost.
the
so
motion's
you can vote
lost.
on
Okay.
The original motion.
Okay, so the motion's back on the floor, and the motion was amended to include all of these halls on the list this evening. Okay, hold on one second, I'm just trying to make it fair for everybody, and I just want to make sure that anybody that hasn't spoken will get a chance to speak before those who have. So Councillor Palmer, you go ahead.
I'll just speak on the Memorial Lodge in Thorburn. So they're a pretty active group. They do Valentine's Day, they do Halloween, they do Christmas. They do Christmas tree lighting, they have treats for the kids and things like that. They are a part of the community, and they do provide that kind of service. They have no commercial revenue or anything like that. They put on breakfasts and things like that for the community, and they're part of the East Pictou Rural Fair. They join in and help out there too. So if you're wondering, that's what the Thorburn Moor Lodge does. So they are a part of the community, and it is used as a community center also. As people rent that for birthday parties and things like that. So thank you.
Okay. All right, I believe everybody has spoken. I'll put you on the list, Warden. Okay, so we'll go through again. I have everybody that had asked to be put down, so we'll go through the list. Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, a lot of these, should be maybe exempt, but not a service club. A service club is out there, they got bylaws, they got regulations they're not supposed to go out to the public looking for anything like this, because that's what they are. They're to help the public, and like, the Lions Club is one of the biggest organizations like in Canada and maybe in North America that gets out there and you take it, something happens, they're there, turn around and but they're collecting funds from the public for service, to give out for service. And we're turning around and saying, okay, we're gonna, I think we're opening the door, we're gonna wish we never had, so I'll be against it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyles. Councillor Parker.
I don't know about the commercial thing with River John, the IOF, but the rest of them are all seem applicable to me. I have a little bit of problem with that, but it just seems like it's, you know, it's not a great deal of money here to, like, these lodges, like I belong to a lodge, but it's the Masons, but we're not tax exempt in Westville anyway. I don't know if some of the other ones are or not, but most of these lodges are doing community-driven things there, so that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I just checked registry joint stocks. River John's Lions Club is registered as a nonprofit. Same as any of our community centers are registered with joint stocks. And I don't believe there's any recognition of service clubs in our policies anywhere. Is there? Does service clubs exempt them from being? I think they were put on the tax roll because they had a commercial operation in their building at one point. But you look at these, and is the River John's Lions Club, is that also a registered comfort center? Do they have backup generator there? No. I know Sunny Bray does, but they all should. It's not a huge amount of money. We should be supporting this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll finish with you, Councillor Bailey, because you put the motion on the floor, so go ahead, Warden Parker. Oh, sorry, Deputy, did you want to speak as well? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So if we're saying it's because they don't have a commercial aspect, which they were all reduced from commercial to residential, how do you then deal with the IOF Hall in River John that does have a commercial aspect? So you're going to have a commercial enterprise in a building that's not going to be paying any taxes. That one doesn't seem to add up if we were using the other basis for the rest of them, but this one does have a business enterprise in it. I don't see how to follow that line. And I also question then, is there going to become an attachment to this that if those buildings then say, well, we're tax-free now, we can make a little extra money by getting the business to move in here with us, do we still say that they're exempt, even though they have a business in them? Once we declare that they're tax exempt, I can see some business that would want to go in that building if they had a little bit of extra space or whatever, or rented. Where do you draw the line if you're saying that it's because they're not commercial, which we've given them, we've brought them to residential. Now we're saying they're going to make tax exempt altogether, regardless of whether they have businesses in them. Again, I come back, my main point is that somebody else has to pay this bill. If these are clubs that are supposedly out there to help others and to raise money to help others, this is taking money away from others at some point. Somebody else is paying that tax bill, but the big one I'm concerned with is that business one, and how do we prevent for that exemption to stay in place? Is there something that says you can't then put commercial in your building? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Warden Parker. Deputy Warden Murray.
Along the same line, I can support the rest, but when it has a commercial identity attached to that building or in part of that building, I don't think that's right, that we should give them a write-off in taxes there. The rest of them are fine, but anything with commercial identity to it gives it an advantage over another commercial identity somewhere else. So I can't support it the way it is if that's in there. Thank you.
Okay, I'm the only one that hasn't spoken on it. Is it okay with councillors if I have a brief, sit in chair and have I guess, an opinion? Is that okay? Yeah. I would agree that these should not be on the list. And this perspective that I have with the IOF Hall in River John is that yes, they own the building, they rent out that space, but the money that they make off that space helps pay, I would assume would help pay for the building. Therefore, the money that they're able to raise as an organization, instead of it going to the upkeep or the building, can go back out into the community. So while I understand the hesitation with the commercial part, I think that that can be looked at through a different lens of that money, instead of it going to the money that they're making off the tenant, could be paying for the building, and more money they raise can go back out in the community. I understand Councillor Boyle's hesitation with the River John Lions Club and the fact that it's not the same, I guess, maybe as a lodge. But I still think the Lions Club does great things in the community. So I guess that's my thought process behind it. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. All right, so we're going to finish off with Councillor Bailey because he put the motion on the floor. So I'll hand it over to you for the finale.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so the River John Odd Falls Hall does have a tenant. I can't tell you what the rent is. I know it's very, very minimum, and the reason that the tenant's there is to ensure that the citizens of River John have a drugstore in their community. Now, what they're paying, listen, I heard that it was around $2,000 a month. So, I mean, that's not a lot of money for what it's offering the community. Again, as far as because the Lions Club is a service group, all those are service groups, every one of them. I mean, they fall under a different category, but I have to agree. I don't know what other would have a building other than the lodge. And the only reason the Lions Club have a building that those two buildings were donated to them, and if they weren't donated, if they weren't given to them, they would be torn down by now for being unsightly. So I have no issue with the way the motion stands because I admire the Odd Falls and the Rebeccas of the IOF Hall because they are a very charitable organization. They probably do more work in the community than any other organization does. But again, it's very secretive, and they do it with no publicity, basically. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call for the vote.
Could I hear the motion again, please?
So the motion is to write off, I guess, these are all these Schedule B properties that are here tonight, the Moore Lodge in Thorburn, Rebecca Lodge, Sunny Bray, sorry, that one's already been wrote off. Springville, the trustees, IOF Hall, River John's Lion Club, and the IOF Hall, River John, to be exempt from property taxes. Right?
Yeah, so it's to, in essence, eliminate Schedule B from your policy and move all those properties to Schedule A. There will be no more Schedule B.
Okay. All right, everyone clear on the motion?
No, I don't understand what Schedule A be, what you're talking about.
So Schedule A are properties that you write off 100% of the taxes. Schedule B, which these are, you were moving them from commercial to residential. So now you're going to move them to 100% exempt if the motion passes.
Okay, we're all clear? All right, let's call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay.
Nay.
Nays, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. Motion carried. Okay, let's move on to I. Clarification on news article regarding affordable access plan. So, Councillor Boyles, you had asked to put this on. There's a recent news articles had misinformation in it regarding the affordable access plan, and you would like it to be corrected. So, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Yes, it was brought to my attention to hear it myself, but it was on the radio, I guess, after our meeting about the internet and the when I spoke about it, and they said that they said about the reason is because the county was running out of money for the internet. Well, we know that's not true. It's because the federal government has made a deal with them not to turn around and give to certain places and give them a bunch of money to turn around and to keep this going. So I just wanted that rightified, that it's not because we don't have the money, it's because the federal government sort of sold out the little places like Thorburn and Hillside. And, you know, and as we say, when we started this internet, we you know, there's a lot of fraudulent you can look at when you turn around, because when you tell somebody you're going to do it this way, you advertise that everybody in Pictou County is going to have the internet. We're going to do this, and then all of a sudden knock out certain communities because the feds are going to give us some money to do so. This is wrong, wrong, wrong. But I want to correct that with the media, that it is because the you know, this big money that was given from the federal government that caused us not to get the internet, in Hillside at least.
Okay. All right, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Boyles. It's too bad we don't have media with us this evening. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
I just want to clarify that I don't think that we're saying to anybody that what we said at the first, that it was going to be available to everybody in the county. I don't think, I haven't anyway varied from that at any point. I've said that in response to Councillor Boyles before. When it comes is a different story. Who gets it first, when it comes second, third, whatever, that's all we're talking about here. I do not believe that we've left out any community at this point, or that we've already drawn out and put an X on certain communities. The order is what changed because of the federal money and the provincial money. They said you must put it in the areas that have absolutely nothing first. So they redrew everything and went in that direction. Otherwise, we didn't get the money. So that's $40 million that we weren't going to get. You know, we could have just said, no, we're doing it our way, and this is where we're going first. But we didn't. We took the $40 million and the rules of the game to have the $40 million. And there was people outcrying when we first started, because we were going just wherever from this building out, that why aren't you going first to the ones that have need for it? I got people on the Alma Road that can't understand why they can't get it, yet the people on the Lockbroom Road got it. Well, it's because on the Lockbroom Road they had nothing. On the Alma Road they already had Eastlink. So that was the new rules of the game, and I stand behind the fact that we're still going to deliver internet, whether it be by fiber or whether it be wireless, to every buddy in Pictou County. I haven't changed that a bit in my mind. I don't think Hillside's drawn out and we put a big X on Hillside. It is in the lot that we have to go to once we spend the federal and provincial money, and we can spend our own money, then we can go to places like Hillside and many others. We're not ruling them out. I've never ruled them out.
Okay, thank you, Warden Parker. You want to respond to that, Councillor Boyles?
Yes, I do, because I think we're giving it to people that has Eastlink and stuff like that now, that have it, that are around. They're getting it. I mean, you know, I mean, it was said tonight about trying to get Pictou, and they got Eastlink, they got, you know, and great. I like to see them get it. I like to see the Blue Mountain, really. I think they should have been the first one that ever got it, because the poor buggers can't get nothing out there. I mean, I'm agreeable for that if that was happening, but it's not. There's people getting it that turn around and have high-speed internet, and that they're looked after fine. But for some reason, Hillside, and I guess Sovereign, according to Councillor Palmer, and I don't know the other ones, but I went in one day and I asked Rihanna if about Hillside, and Rihanna told me at that time she didn't think Hillside was ever going to get it. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, she was honest, she was upfront. So, I mean, I don't know what changed, and so that's why I keep saying that Hillside is not going to be getting it.
Madam Chair, if I may? No, that's fine if you want to get moving on. It's getting late.
I think we need to move on tonight. I think this is a discussion that will be on our radar for a while, and I think if it's okay with everyone, we'll move along for this evening. Is that okay with you, Warden Parker? Okay. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, we have a thing every January we used to have where we get together. Are we having that this year or not?
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later. Yep, no, absolutely. Just trying to stay on track here. All right, let's move along on our list here where we're at. We're on J. Hospitality Policy Review. So every year, or every term, we have to look at this as a council. This is the Municipal Government Act requires that our council review its hospitality policy after the new council takes office in the end of January. So we have the hospitality policy in our package. I'm sure everybody had a chance to review it. So we'll need a motion for that, and then we can open up for questions and comments.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Turner, seconded by Councillor Wadden. All right, I'll open the floor up to any questions or comments on that. Or Brian, you want to speak on that?
No comments. The policy's been in effect really for the last term, and it works well. There's really no changes identified or areas of concern, so there's no recommended
No recommended changes?
changes
Okay.
from staff.
Okay, go ahead, Warden Parker.
I don't know if Brian has this information, but do we know how much in the last year that we spent on the hospitality policy?
I don't have it right offhand. It's on the website. It's on the website, so.
Must be minimal, I think, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's not a great number. Let me just
Haven't had
see.
any large dignitaries lately.
For hospitality. Yeah, I don't have it readily
No,
available,
that's
but
okay.
things like the Christmas party would fall under hospitality. Staff Christmas party would be disclosed there, things like that. But
Because I don't think we wined and dined anybody.
no, not from that
Not that I was there.
perspective, so.
You might remember it, yeah.
Yeah, so just looking at the last quarter, like the third quarter, so the staff Christmas gathering is in there. So like that total was like 5,300 for that quarter. So the previous quarter to that, a council meeting where we brought supper in, like $200, so not large amounts by
Okay,
any.
so that counts under the hospitality, I thought it was more like, you know, you could say wine and dining.
It's any event.
That's not just an expense.
Yeah, yeah.
So anytime there's food or tea or coffee or that sort of thing, that's where that gets,
Exactly.
that pot of money.
So in that quarter, we did a recreation student appreciation thing, so $185, so.
for rec students this summer kind of thing.
Right,
Yeah,
so, yep.
so that's where that money is disclosed.
So, yeah, so at the end of the third quarter, we're at $7,800 for the year.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, and our last action item this evening, we have council expense policy. Again, the MGA requires that council review its expense policy after the new council takes office in end of January. Have a motion on the floor? Okay, Councillor Wadden, it's been moved by Councillor Wadden. You have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bailey. Okay, I'll open the floor up to questions or comments. Nothing?
No, kind of did a, as the memo says, quick survey of units of similar size, population, budgets, things like that. Our current policy is $80 a day, and we pay the provincial rate of 58.38. So that's not really out of whack with what the other units are paying. Most are within a couple cents on the mileage rate and within a couple dollars on the meal allowances.
Meal allowances, yeah.
Type thing. So there's no great deviation that was found.
Questions or comments on that? Go ahead, Councillor McDonald.
Hi, Madam Chair. Just looking at different municipalities and that stuff, and I don't notice Antigonish gives, like, for cell phones and that stuff. I do not think that we should be voting on this for this time, like for this increase, because it would be bad for us to vote for increases to our own salaries, maybe for next time. I mean, the cell phones, and then Municipality of Colchester, cell and internet is $225 a quarter increase. It's just different, something to look at for the next council. Or can we do that?
Councillor McDonald brings up a good point. How are we in line with other councils? Like wage-wise?
Wage-wise, that was in the memo. I can report that to you at a future meeting. Like
Okay.
when I was doing expenses, a lot of them disclosed it at the same place, so I made notes of it. So I can do that at a future meeting if that's your wish.
It just, just going along with what Councillor McDonald said, just some municipalities do different things, and not saying that we need to do different things, it's just interesting to see what they do, and, you know, so, before, when I first started council, we used to get write-offs, like, for our cell phones or whatever, and now Trudeau did away with all that, since, I apologize, my throat's going. Yeah, it might be back, who knows? So I was just curious, just to add on to Councillor McDonald. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. All right, now we're moving on to deferred business. So we had spoken about the Pictou Library funding before concerning the operational budget, so I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Sure. So this issue should probably come back hopefully next month. The estimates are complete and are going to be presented to the project meeting or project team here hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I've seen the draft. It came in late on Friday, so we'll go to that group first and then come back to here once they've had the opportunity to kind of review it. So I would expect that to happen within the next couple weeks.
So they're just drafts
At this
now.
point, they're just drafts, and were provided to me for comment. So I've provided my comments back on it. So it'll be a future meeting, and as I say, there was some discussion about wrapping that up here in the next couple weeks.
So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have some final numbers and so we're ready to have an informed decision on that.
Correct.
Okay? All right, motions of reconsideration. Any motions of reconsideration this evening? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
I'll call the property services meeting to order. First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I'll try to keep this under an hour or 2.5 hours if possible, so we can get home before midnight. Next is approval of the agenda. It's moved by Councillor Turner.
Second it.
Seconded by Councillor McKeel. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Count by nay. Motion carried. Next, is there any emergency resolutions? Councillor McDonald.
Just, Mr. Chair, just I'd like to bring up under the new business or whatever, poor landline service to be added to agenda.
Point of order, is that an emergency for this
Is
evening?
it, yes, that's what I was wondering. Is it something,
Can go in next month, agenda?
can it be put on next month's agenda?
It's just that these landlines are not working and lifelines are not working because of that. I don't foresee any changes by the big telecom people, but if you want to leave it till next meeting, that's fine.
Well, we'll put it out there. You need the majority.
I know it's an emergency in some ways, but I think we have to be careful what all we add to emergency. If we can deal with it at the next month's meeting, it'd probably be better than getting too many things added onto the emergency. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and my only concern was, that he named it as an emergency for landlines, is it? Emergency, for emergency services?
Not for emergency services, they're for people, residents of District
Residents.
1. That is, their landline's not working because of lines.
Because of poor lines.
So I guess it could be an emergency, if somebody could have a fire, it might be an emergency.
Oh, sorry. Just, it's residents of District 1. It's just not Lismore. This lady's with the lifelines in Lismore, but the residents in Lagan and that stuff, the same issues. Landline's not working, and cell service is non-existent down there, so these are.
I'm gonna put this out for a vote. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Count of my nay. Motion carries. So we'll add that, Joe, to 7C. Okay. Next, is there any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes of December 16th? Any errors or omissions or corrections? Any errors, omissions, or corrections? Seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. Next is reports not requiring a motion. Director of Public Works and Development's report. Any questions? Councillor Wadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering what happened with the Planning Committee meeting the other night in their presentation by Upland concerning the changes that are being made to the planning strategy.
Logan?
My mic's not working now, but I'll just speak loudly. We had a really productive meeting. Upland broke down all of the input that they received from residents, from anybody who provided input, and the general themes that they were dealing with, and then gave a number of options for each of those themes and a recommendation for which option. Planning Advisory Committee took each of those options into consideration for each of those areas of focus and provided recommendations on provisions to the land use planning documents that will make their way into the next draft that will be presented to council.
Do we know when that's going to be presented to council?
I believe Upland's working on them right now, and we had expected them this week or next, hopefully for inclusion into the next council package. That was the general idea there.
And the public session, I know they have public sessions when it comes to council. Will it be one held in the east and the west, or will it just be one public session held?
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. So the plan is that the documents will be presented to council for first reading in February. From there, it will move to a public hearing and second reading in March. So the public hearing would be, I think it's March 3rd is what's tentative, but a lot of this will come out of what happens at the February meeting.
Yep.
So in essence, council can modify the document, make amendments to it in February. That's what is then presented to the public at its public hearing.
And do we know where that meeting will be held or may be held? Do we have any idea?
It'll be March 3rd,
No, but where?
probably here.
At the council. Okay. Thank you, that's fine, thank you.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of logistical rules around it. People are going to have to register to speak in advance type thing, so we know what, try to get a handle on what to expect type thing. So, so that's the current plan. Is the PAC has accepted the document and is recommending it to council for first reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question is, are we gonna have like, another meeting with just Upland to come in saying like, this is what we heard at the public sessions? Or we're just gonna receive a document and then it's kind of up to us to, like a revised document, and then it's kind of up to us to make it what it's gonna be? Make any changes?
Just,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, the Plan Advisory Committee had that meeting already.
Okay,
So we said, here's the recommendations, and that's going to come to council. And that's when council will have the decision whether to change that or not, so.
okay. Will we also hear, what they heard, like what your changes were and what your proposals were?
I imagine it'd be part of the package with Brian. Or it can be.
I think it's important for us to hear what the residents of the municipality, what was important to them the second time around, because we did the first time. And I think it's important for us to know what the issues were. Was there common concerns throughout all the meetings, that sort of thing? I think that's a,
Yeah, we can certainly include the what we heard document
Yeah.
that was presented to PAC.
yeah.
Right,
That'd be great.
and the recommendations that,
That-
I think every recommendation was adopted. Most,
Yeah.
not all, so,
Yeah.
but,
Gives you an idea what was
yeah,
presented.
so we'll ensure that's included in the documents that come around.
Warden Parker, or hold it. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question comes from basically some of the meetings we had at our climate change sessions that we had in communities, and there was a lot of discussion regarding forest fires and fire. And it kind of prompted me to thinking, particularly as we watched the fires in LA, that that city could be liable for losses, citizens' losses on their homes, simply because the fire hydrants weren't at full capacity. So my question is, would you consider our fire hydrants at full capacity? And the second question is, as we put these subdivisions in that are in areas that have that are serviced by water, are we putting fire hydrants in those subdivisions as well? Like we had a gentleman here a couple of months ago, and he's putting a subdivision up in Mount William. It's serviced by water, but I don't think there's a fire hydrant there. So my question is, if and when there was a fire in one of those subdivisions that are serviced by water, and there's a loss of someone's home, would the county be liable because there's no fire hydrant there? I don't know if you have an answer for that, but that's my question. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak to, not a lawyer, so I don't know if I can speak to whether or not we'd be liable, but we don't require hydrants in every subdivision that has water. There are hydrant rates applied that are typically brought into the conversation on whether or not hydrants are included. Oftentimes they are included. And whether or not hydrants are, have the capacity to deal with fires. I think in part, I don't want to speak on behalf of Evan with the emergency services side of things, but the hydrants that we have are all operable to the best of our knowledge. We understand that some, what is it called, queuing of trucks may be required in areas such as Hillside in certain situations, but they're all able to be utilized by the fire service. So whether or not we would look to have a policy stating that hydrants be included in all future subdivisions where there is capacity, let's say, is definitely something we could look at, but we don't, and it's included in a lot of subdivisions right now, but not in every subdivision.
So how do we look at that? What's the process of looking at that?
Many municipalities have Sorry, Mr. Chair. Many municipalities have specifications, design or construction specifications for new developments that dictate those requirements. Halifax has them in their Halifax water standard specifications, for example. I believe Trenton just revised their own specifications a couple of years ago as well, so we could look at that type of an exercise to put together firm specifications on what we expect to see with new subdivisions.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that. Okay, Brian, go ahead. I was just going to say, I know the fire departments get together and they do that. They have tankers to come and they pour into a pool and things like that, right? Like a lot of places in the county don't have fire hydrants, right? So we do have in some areas, but if we start putting them in every area, it's going to cost a lot of money. That's the big thing.
My question was on liability.
Well,
That's my question.
I'd say because our fire departments are, Debbie, you might know what they do that test every so often that they can pump. They can pump that, or Joe.
Superior shuttle service, and Ray at the moment, we're not certified.
Not certified now.
Under because there's 5 or 6 different insurance underwriters, different brokers or whatever in the system, and one might recognize us, but the 3 or 4 other ones do not recognize you. So it just goes back and forth to which insurer of the property, which broker, which company is insured by. So one insurance company might, not insurance company, one insurance broker. Bigger people, brokers. No, not brokers, the individual salesmen, the companies, insurance companies, there's 3 or 4 different companies, and 1 or 2 might see this shuttle service, superior shuttle service, but these other 2 or 3 might not recognize it.
Yeah, Brian, did you?
Yeah, just on the issue of liability. Municipalities are not held liable for policy decisions. So if you do not make the decision to do something, courts generally will not say you're liable. But if you have hydrants in an area and they don't work, then you probably are liable, right? But the decision to put them in, if you make a decision that you're not going to put them in, courts are very reluctant to say you're liable because you made the decision not to do it. But if you do something, you better deliver on what you're doing, because,
That was a Plymouth sidewalk argument too.
right? So, yeah, policy decisions are generally not something courts will weigh in on, but once you make the decision, you better deliver on what you said you're going to.
We're not.
In most cases, probably not. But Milton Vino always used to say, anybody can sue you. It's still going to cost you money to defend something, even if it's frivolous, right? So.
Okay,
That-
Warden Parker. You good then? Okay. Okay, any other questions for our Director of Public Works? Councillor Thompson?
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. Logan, just wondering about the flow meters that need to be installed. Where do we stand with that? I understand there's 9 that need to be replaced that we're responsible for in the county, and there's a couple other municipalities that are also in the same boat as us. Are we going to be able to get that work done in this construction season?
Thank you for the question, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we'll be able to get that done through the next construction season. With all due respect to other parties, I disagree. I don't think that we need to install 9 flow meters to accurately measure the county's flows. We have 4 that we've purchased, and we're going out to tender for construction. That's been delayed just with some logistics and trying to deal with a contractor that's been helping us put together the tender documents. We also expect to proceed with another one in short order. All in all, I agree that we should be installing 5 of these flow meters, and I think that we need to have ongoing discussions with the folks at Shared Services around the others, because I disagree. I don't think that we need, we need 5, and I don't think we need 9. I don't think we need more than 5. If that answers your question.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Development Officers Report. Councillor Watt.
Is there any update, Logan, to the Chance Harbor subdivision? Have they made progress there?
Thank you for the question. Thankfully, there is an update. We are moving, we got the documents from the applicant that we need. We got draft servicing agreement documents back and forth with our lawyer, so I think we're getting close to sending those off to the applicant. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to Emergency Services. Councillor Bowles.
Yeah, when we got the, them heart machine things you put on the wall there, whatever they're called, AEDs, Kevin said that we were going to, he said we were going to have people come around and make sure that they were put up right and proper. That's not happened yet. I wonder if that's something that's going to take place.
Logan, can you answer that?
I don't want to speak on behalf of Evan and his staff, but I know that they have been looking at different safety upgrades in different facilities. So it might be a question better left for Evan, but.
Well, we already have them, eh? We had them, and when I asked him about them, we were, just not sure we were putting them in right. He said that they were gonna go round everybody and make sure they were in right, so that's what the.
So these are AEDs that were purchased
Yeah,
through
that's when you got, yep.
ACOA program. Okay, well, we'll follow up with Evan on that.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Fire Inspector's Report. Seeing no questions. Building Inspection Report. It's getting late, I guess. Next is the Bylaw Officer's Report. Okay? No questions there, so we'll move on. Business items that require actions. District 3, resident concerned with snow removal on provincial roads. Councillor McKeel, would you like to?
Yeah, sure, thank you. Yep, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I obviously know putting this on the agenda has a discussion about provincial roads, and that, we really have no jurisdiction over that. However, I'm sure just like the rest of you receive many calls about plowing and how the roads are serviced within your community. And a lot of times, I was sitting here tonight and got a resident messaging me for sand. They have an important appointment tomorrow, and they need to get out, and they need some sand because the road's very slippery. So I receive a lot of phone calls concerning roads, especially salting and sanding, and have reached out in the past about if something had changed in our coverage area, because it's not preventative anymore. It seems reactionary, and received an email back that everything's status quo. I've also spoken to Marco McLeod regarding this, and just, I don't know. I feel our residents are a little frustrated, and I know that we tell them to call the 1-800 number, and I'm very clear. I even spoke to that night about at our climate change meeting, speaking about the road out in Caribou River, about the road washing out there, and the problem calling the 1-800 number is that they don't know the roads' names, they're not familiar. And residents, I've heard it multiple times, are having a hard time feeling like they were heard because they don't know the road, they don't know where it's at. And so I always say to my residents, please call the 1-800 number, produces a ticket. If your neighbors are having the same issues, please encourage them to call, because the more people that call, squeaky wheel gets grease, right? So I've been asked by residents to take this forward tonight. I'm not sure what we can do for this, but, you know, I think residents are feeling a little frustrated with the fact that I know that there's certain time limits, that they don't have to be plowed or salted or sanded until, you know, so many hours after the last snowflake. And I know that they work incredibly hard. And just like every other industry right now, they're having a hard time finding workers. And I'm not really sure what the solution is. If I was, I'm sure I would let everybody know. But I've been asked to bring this forward. I think residents are feeling a little frustrated, and they're not really sure what to do. And like I said, this isn't we don't have any jurisdiction here, but as counselors, I know we advocate for our residents, and it was important to them to bring this up this evening, and just in case any other counselors were having the same concerns or fielding the same calls. So that's why I put this on the agenda this evening. It was important to my residents, so I wanted to bring it up. So thank you.
Warden Parker. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm thankful to Councillor McKeough for bringing this up tonight, because I'm sure every one of us have heard this. I'm sure the province doesn't mind us hearing it. Maybe we should take the roads over, then we could look at them ourselves. That's been suggested. So if the service isn't very good, well, maybe you fellas take it over and see how you get along. So I think there's something to that too, but I think it is a safety issue. But none of us like the inconvenience of not getting our road plowed in time, or not getting our road sanded. I know some roads that you can't put salt on that have to have sand, and sometimes a long time before they get the sand. So you take an event like we had today, although it wasn't as bad as predicted, I don't think, but there's a safety issue here, and I realize all the reasons. We can't find enough help. You know, dollars are being taken away to go to health or to go to housing or something with a higher priority than roads. But it's really a safety issue, and I think we just have to keep pushing as a council. We have to keep pushing, you know, to improve things, not to accept. Once we accept that this is just the way it is, then nothing's going to improve. Putting the service in Cape Breton didn't help any, for sure, by taking out that local component. Every time you take out the local component, it makes it more difficult. It might work better on a system and a computer and everything. You get your ticket and all this stuff, but I really think we have to look upon it as a safety issue. And the more often we or the people can contact our MLAs, which is basically Marco McLeod and the Premier, I think the better it is. And stress that it is a safety issue. I know, especially older people, trying to get out their vehicles and out their driveway is a big challenge, but trying to make it down their road to get to the main road is usually going to be all right, but to make it down their back road or their dirt road has always been bad. So I commend you for taking it forward, Councilor McKeough, because we have to keep it out front and center, or it never will improve. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bowles.
Yeah, well, I think as you said, everybody's having the same problem, but as the warden can attest, there in that big bad snowstorm, I mean, out in the Branch Road and the John Campbell Road and the Glen Follick Road, holy western God, 3 and 4 days before they even get out of there. But it's not safe. I was talking to the Premier on it. He told me, have a talk to his assistant. So anyway, I'm taking some action, so if it works, then maybe we can all try it, but I got something up my sleeve. I'm going to try and we'll see where it lands.
Get a shovel? Get a shovel?
I want you to do what you want.
Councillor One.
It's been a while since we had anyone from Public Works here at council for a discussion and question and answer, so maybe it's time to have them come and do another presentation. So at least we can ask some of our questions and get updated on where things stand.
Good idea.
Yeah. So, do you want to make that a motion?
And I'll
Okay.
second it.
Moved and seconded? To ask the area manager for Pictou County to come to make a presentation before council?
Yeah, but you gotta go create two area managers, wouldn't you?
No?
No.
No, well, River John is, yeah, you do. Colchester County. Chris Verge. So.
I'll
Settle
settle for one.
for one? I doubt if you get Chris over here, but anyway. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Counted by nay, motion carried. Next is removal of animals killed on roads. Counselor Boyles. This might be a question you can ask when the area manager comes.
Yeah, well, I brought to me the other day by a resident out in the River Road, Plymouth. There was a deer killed earlier on this year, I guess, and they just threw it by a mailbox, by her mailbox, and she called Department of Lands and Forests and Highways, and they told them, call the county. The county looks after that. She wrote to her counselor, but never got a reply. And she turned around and said she's pretty frustrated and pretty worked up at what's going on and why nothing's being done. And what do you do if there's one? It ended up one of her horses died, and when they come to take the horse, they took the deer. But if we can find out where people should be going to get this done, if they got a dead animal in front of their house. I mean, the kids were going by the mailbox all the time, seeing this dead animal there. I mean, that's not right. But if we know what it is, then we can put it on our internet and tell people, hey, you got a dead animal on your road, here's where you call.
Is there anything you want to do there? Is there an action there, Councilor Boyles?
Well, the only action is that if we turn around, if we can find out from, I don't know if our staff can find out or who would know, get the truth of who was responsible,
There's a
so we can put it on our internet.
Different time of the year that Department of Natural Resources looks after, and there's different time of year that Department of Public Works looks after. Public Works looks after 100 series roads all the time because.
Well, if we can get that and we put it on our internet saying, okay, if you got an animal killed this time, here's where you call this time.
I can't see them telling her that it was, call your counselor.
Well, not only did she call the council down here, she told me now that, and I mean, I'm just getting it, but they told me, but they were told, yeah, we'll look after it. And then it wasn't being looked after, and when they called back to try to find out what was going on, no, we're just gonna let nature take its toll and let it rot away. So I don't know, I'm just telling you what I was told.
Councilor McKeel first.
I think I've heard like multiple times, like it's kind of a hot potato. Like nobody really wants to deal with it, so they kind of move it around. And like you said, depending on the time of year and this and that and the other thing, I think it's something that nobody really wants to go and pick up a dead animal off a road. And I totally get that because as an animal lover, it breaks my heart to drive by. But I think there needs to be some very, like I know myself, I can understand the frustration. Like I don't really know who takes care of it. You hear Lands and Forests and you hear Department of Transportation, but I think there needs to be some clear answers on that. Maybe again, this is a question for the area manager when he comes to visit us.
Councilor Barker.
I had a deer killed in front of my house a few years ago. I called the RCMP and they told me to call the Department of Natural Resources, DNR. I called them, they come up with half ton, picked it up. That's how they get rid of the deer. That was 3 or 4 years ago now. I would call DNR, that's who I would call. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
You only have 2 minutes.
What's that?
You only have 2 minutes.
I'll get 2 minutes. Oh, geez, we better rush it then.
Otherwise, you do have to agree to extend the meeting.
Yeah. Do you want the staff to look into this, to see you? It'll make it 2 phone calls, one to Natural Resources, one to Public Works. Agree?
Agreed.
Agreed, okay. Move on, landlines. Councillor McDonald.
I'll be quick and, I was contacted by a citizen in Lismore. Their landline, they have a senior citizen living in their house, and their landline phone for emergencies will not work because their landlines will not work. And they don't know what to do because Bell says, comes, checks it, and it's the lines, but some of the workmen will say it's in the lines, and Bell will not fix them. So where should they go? What should they do? And these landlines apparently don't work off internet and that stuff, so they're just looking for help.
Councillor Wadden?
I just know some people in my area that had major problems like that as well, and they just went through the CRTC. They reported it to them, and they did get some action on it.
Okay, Councillor McKeel?
That's what I was going to say, but I was also going to say that I know that I had family that, not in District 1, but that also had the reoccurring problem of their landline wouldn't work. And they had, Bell come out consistently and say there's nothing wrong. But if there's anything wrong inside the house, that is a responsibility of the homeowner, and that is, they'll have to either find an employee that's willing to do that for them and take pity on them, or they'll have to get an electrician or somebody to come in and help.
These people have not had technicians there, and it's not in their house, it's on lines outside their house. So, where'd you say?
CRTC.
Councillor Dorr?
Mine's the very same as what Councillor McDonald's saying. In Springville, on the east side, west side, East River West Side Road, from the bridge down, the phone's out half the time. So, and then over on the other hill, going towards Churchville, they're having trouble too, and up the river. So anyway, I made a few calls because this has been happening ever since last May. It'd be out for a week or 2 weeks, and the people will come from the telephone company and they'll say the trouble's in the line. It's not in the house, it's in the line. Well, they finally got somebody to come and say, well, it's in the line, but they'll have to run new lines. Well, there used to be you just hook another wire on, but those wires were put in likely in 1972 when it went from this kind of phone to this kind. So that's what's happening, and I got the same problem that he's talking about. It's these buttons for people if they fall. It doesn't work if the phone's not working. So it all boils down to big business don't want to look after little people anymore. And that's what's happening. So maybe sometime in the next while, when we haven't got a whole bunch of other stuff on the agenda, maybe it's time to get the telephone company here again. Because we have the complaints, and the people are complaining, and the company's discounting them. But I can't talk to anybody. When they give me their number to call, or I call, when they call me on a cell phone from some of their kid's car or something, I make the call. But because I'm not the person on the bill, they won't talk to me, okay? Because it's okay, and then I got permission to do that. And that makes sense, okay? But I'm not talking about, I don't want to know how much their bill is or none of that. I'm telling them that there's a problem, and tell them who you are. And it's awful hard to get somebody in the Philippines very interested in something that's going on in Springville, okay? But anyway, I totally have sympathy for everybody else that has the same problem.
Yeah, well, I'm going as soon as he's finished.
Yeah, well, I'm finished. But the problem's there, but they're not interested in this, okay? Thank you.
Okay, so we gotta have a motion to go past 10 o'clock because we gotta, it's in our.
There was no thing made that we're going to be done at
thought,
No, that's just somebody wants to go home, and I'm ready to go too.
It cannot last longer than 3 hours.
Okay, we're here 3.5, so
So-
give it another year, half an hour.
Yeah, there was a committee.
so we make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
You make a motion, seconder, to extend it, just to finish a few items on our business. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Count on my nay. Motion carried. Okay, so, Joe, do you want to?
Can I make a motion for this county to support the residents and write it to the CRTC and ask them to improve service? Or would that be residents?
I'll send you the contact information that they can do it. We've written to the CRTC numerous times on this issue. I don't recall that we've ever actually got a response back. Yeah, so I'll send you this contact info
Great,
right
thank you,
now.
good. Okay, did you want the same thing? Okay, maybe send it out to everybody, Brian, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay,
I just gotta just call me out, that's all I do.
next is deferred business, there's none. So motion of reconsideration? Seeing none?
Hard pass.
Community announcements. Any community announcements? It's past 10 o'clock, so yes, there's no community announcements. Okay,
Good.
I call the meeting adjourned. Good night.